So who remember January 3rd, 2009, when the first block of Bitcoin was mined, and with a small wink to the times? But in fact, I want to refer to two other things that probably nobody noticed. A small advertisement in the Financial Times on September 18, 2008. Or in 2002, these two Estonian cryptographers who started to publish a number of patents, very interesting. And a few of you probably remember in 2007, in April, that Estonia was very severely cyber-attacked there. What do these things have to do in common? They are all about how can we generate trust in the digital world. And I'm going to tell you a story which started in Estonia in 2002. But first, if I want to generate trust in the digital space, what should I do? I should first be able to prove the data integrity and data security. Security is about hacking. Data integrity, this is more about immutability, the fact that I can prove that my data has not been tampered or not been counterfeited. I have also to prove that I can keep the data safe with respect to confidentiality, to privacy, to consent. And something that I like is data sovereignty. If you remember in the past days when you were going to a bank to make a withdrawal of a deposit, you were signing two receipts with the cashier, and you were keeping one copy and the cashier was keeping the other copy. And with these receipts, you could prove at any time without the bank that you have so much money in the bank. Now with e-banking, could you do that anymore? You receive a PDF receipt that you can Photoshop it in 5 seconds. Okay? So we have to go back to digital receipts. I want also to be able to prove a full traceability and auditability of all my data, and to make such that everybody who did something with this data will be accountable for what he did with this data. And finally, something which is quite interesting, in addition to data integrity, this is process integrity. How can I guarantee and prove that these data were processed through an audited and official process and not through a diverted process? If I want to be able to provide all these properties over there, what should I do? If I want to build trust, I have in my vertical axis here the level of trust. I need, of course, standard IT solution. And then, if I want to raise the level of trust here, what could I do? I could just add a blockchain on top of it, and I'm done. I'm finished. However, the reality is a little bit different. Blockchain is an essential component, but it's not yet enough to build a level of trust up to these levels. I need additional things. I need additional encryption, and especially the way to keep safe the encryption keys. I need a very strong digital identity to be sure who done what and when on which data. I need also data sovereignty to preserve confidentiality, and this digital receipt I was talking a few seconds before. I need also a very strong digital to physical link. How can I make sure that it's me behind this identity? How can I make sure that this is this computer or this server behind the treatment of such data? And for that, secure marking is one way. It's not the only one, but it's one way to guarantee this physical to digital link. And finally, I could add a layer of artificial intelligence in order to see or to detect fraudulent behaviors which could not have been detected by the previous stack of technologies. So you see, it's not all about blockchain. It's about this whole stack of technology here. But what is new? In fact, these blue technologies are, I would say, there since a long time. But the blockchain is available here only since a few years to the public in order to be the keystone for this digital integrity building construction. And the blockchain alone is a nice keystone. It's just a nice stone on the floor, which is not very useful. But when put at the right place, it allows really to build this integrity construction. But if this blockchain is not strong enough, then the whole integrity construction may fall down. The whole question is, which blockchain for public services? I'm involved mainly in public services, so I will focus on that. Which one? You know that you have basically private, public blockchains. Which one should we choose? Public blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. You have more than 2,000 on the market today. Which one to take? Who controls them? Nobody, everybody. Okay, so is it good for a government to to have an infrastructure based upon something that they have no way of, no grasp on it. There are also problems of scalability. So the level of trust for the big ones are very good, low scalability and no control. What about the private ones? Hyperledger, R3, etc. The problem is that a private blockchain, this is something that is designed by a group of people, a club of people who will set the rules. And how, if you are not part of this club, typically as a citizen, how can you trust that this club will not change the rule and rewind the tape and rewrite the history? So, low trust, although we could have high scalability. The question also is, for which use case, which blockchain should I use? And I could take the analogy of transportation systems, transportation and infrastructure. We have, typically in every country, we have roads, we have freeways, we have railways, we have air channels, we have electricity grid. You see that for each transportation system, you have its own network with very complex interoperability systems between these different networks. And in blockchain, this is a little bit the same. And we could imagine that for Switzerland, we could have for each type of use case a different use case, private, public, and with very complicated interoperability systems. What did Estonia do about this problem? Did they do that? In fact, they had one chance. They asked this question to themselves after the cyber attack in 2007, 2008, before even Satoshi Nakamoto has published his paper. And they decided to go for one thing, which is a single infrastructure, a single so-called today KSI blockchain for all e-government solutions, all e-government applications. In order to understand how it works, I will show you that through the following metaphor. If I would like to prove in 10 years from now that indeed I have said this statement, how can I do that? We can all do that here from this room. How could I do that? I publish that into a famous newspaper. Why? Because if I want to counterfeit that and to say that I have said another statement in 10 years from now, then I would need to get back all the copies of this newspaper and replace them by a counterfeited version. Of course, I want to secure this information, but I don't want to disclose it, and so I will not publish this text. I will publish the hash of this text here, which is the fingerprint of this text. And the newspaper here is acting as an immutable distributed ledger, an immutable public distributed ledger. This is not very scalable, so we can aggregate into a so-called Merkle tree a big number of documents and publish this top hash into the newspaper here. And one thing which is very important, the data that I want to protect will never be disclosed. They will never go out of my system. And so in 10 years from now, if I have my document here, I will be able to prove, because I would have received a cryptographic link when I would have timestamped this information into the blockchain. I would have a cryptographic link between the hash of my document here and the publication in the newspaper. And this is absolutely impossible to counterfeit, and I don't need anymore this blockchain to prove it, because the newspaper will act as the distributed ledger. So I will have a centralized system to manage this cryptographic link, but through this publication into the newspaper and published at many copies, the newspaper is acting as a public distributed ledger. So I have a private system which is publicly exposed, and nobody can change the past, even though the people who are managing such a system. And in fact, this here was a hash which was published, a top hash which was published indeed in the newspaper, the Financial Times of September 18, in order to secure all the transactions and data which were made before. And so Estonia has, since 2008, a single blockchain for all, which is agnostic to application. The data are never exposed or shared. It has a scalability of 1,000 billion transactions per second, with a settlement time of 1 second. No a public trust anchor, which is the newspaper. It does not consume any electricity like Bitcoin mining. There is no cryptocurrency attached to it. It's not necessary. It will be even quantum-proof, fully interoperable, and running 24/7 since 2008. And in fact, this is available for the world, where any number of application use cases could connect to this. The title of this conference is From Lab to Market. I want to show you that this is not anymore in the lab. This is in the market. This is, in fact, running since 2008, so since more than 10 years. And what we are developing in terms of digital integrity is three things: secure registries, secure authentication and signatures, and secure value document. If I start by secure registries, the idea is how to secure, how to make such that I could trust the ownership of my house, for instance, not anymore as a notary document, but as a PDF file somewhere in the cloud, and where I could interact with all the actors, including the hackers. I need to be able to prove all these properties. The data integrity, the indisputable temporal evidence, this is obvious. The data security, and typically if you think about US for voter registry, if they could prove that there was no intrusion into the database, this would help them a lot, and this is what we can do today. About confidentiality, to make such that through a very careful handling of the encryption keys, nobody, even if you can penetrate these registries, these databases, you would not understand anything. Digital sovereignty, this is this digital receive. How can I prove my good faith independently from the system? And then process integrity, very interesting. How can I prove that these data have been processed through an audited and authorized and processed, because this process itself, it is secure on the blockchain. This is another way of presenting smart contracts. And finally, through a strong digital identity, how can I give the indisputable proof of who did what and when on which data? And so, again, we need this keystone, this KSI blockchain, to secure the whole thing. The second is about secure authentication. All the authentication that we do typically for e-banking, etc., are based upon asymmetric cryptography, and when quantum computers will be fully available, this will be in jeopardy. And IBM presented at the CES last week a first quantum computer. In 5 years, 10 years from now, it will be there. Here, our cryptographers in Estonia have developed a new generation of blockchain-assisted digital signature, which is quantum-proof and which is existing already today on our computers. And finally, sometimes you need to extract an information from a database, typically my birth certificate, and I need to demonstrate, to prove that this piece of paper that I could have printed at home, or I could have it digitally on my phone, is genuine and cannot be counterfeited. Why? Because there is a cryptographic link between what is on this document here and some information which is on the blockchain over here. And so, unfortunately, I don't have time to make a live demonstration of that. I could do that later on at the break if you wish. But the idea is I could put this birth certificate here in an e-administration platform over here and have the proof and give the proof to anybody independently from this platform of the guaranteed integrity of this document, the fact that it has been signed by, in this case, the population office, so I can have a proven provenance of this document. And finally, I could, through a cryptographic link with the blockchain, I could have this document separated as a piece of paper here, and I can demonstrate that this document is genuine, that its content is genuine. So you see, it's not anymore a concept, it's not anymore a white paper, it's not even a sandbox, it's a reality that governments are able to use today here through such a platform. Thank you very much.